Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD. Today we're going to do something a little bit different on the channel and actually do a news update. If you follow along to Disney Parks news, surely you've heard about this new Genie service. While there still are a lot of unknowns about the program, in today's video we will be going over what we do know about the new Disney Genie service, including Disney Genie Plus, lightning lanes, individual attractions, and more. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy my content, please hit that thumbs up button to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can ring the bell icon to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. If you want more immediate reactions, particularly pertaining to Disney news, go ahead and follow me over on Twitter at PixieDustPhD. I'm also on Instagram under the same handle, though I don't generally post about news there. I recognize that by the time this video is posted, the news is a little bit old and this may be considered late. I did take some time to digest the news for myself, and also collect all of the facts that I could that we know definitely are true. If you've been around the channel for a while, you know that I am pretty thorough and detail-oriented, so I did take my time and thank you for your patience. Let's get into it. The Disney Genie service is absolutely free. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of chatter about just the Genie service. I think it's really being overshadowed by the other parts of the announcement, but let's talk about it. Through the free Disney Genie service, which you can access through your My Disney Experience app on your phone, you're basically going to tell the Genie what would make your best day, the things that you enjoyed the most. It's then going to plan an itinerary for you, and you'll get updates continuously to that itinerary throughout your park day. A really neat aspect about this is it's going to show you the current wait times, but also projected future wait times, which isn't really something we've had before. They're selling this as the Disney Genie will help you make the absolute most of your visit, so time efficiency, and overall just have your best Disney day. In terms of the wait times and efficiency, it really does kind of sound a lot like touring plans. Disney surely has so much previous data from prior FastPass utilization that I'm really interested to see how much of this data they worked into this new algorithm that's going to work on these projected wait times. I think this could be a really rich source of information in terms of what you'll do next in your itinerary and could make a lot of people's planning process much simpler. Again, this is all totally free to you. That is Disney Genie. Next, there's Disney Genie Plus. At Walt Disney World, this will cost $15 per ticket per day, and at Disneyland, it will be $20 per ticket per day. At Disneyland, though, your photo pass will be included. That is not true at Walt Disney World. At Disney World, you do get AR filters for your photos, but I don't really know how much that's worth. And then for both, you will get Disney-themed audio experiences. The wording was very clear that it was per ticket per day, not per guest per day, so I am assuming this means that if you have young tykes that do not need a ticket to enter, you don't need to pay for them for Genie Plus. Also, that makes a lot of logical sense from a tech standpoint because they don't have a ticket to attach Genie Plus to. Essentially, you can think of Genie Plus as the new paid FastPass system. When you buy Genie Plus for the day, you will have access to choose the next available arrival time at a variety of attractions and experiences throughout the parks. Once your arrival time comes, you will then access that attraction or experience through the lightning lane. This part will get a little confusing, and I think you'll see why later. But essentially, that lightning lane is the physical path. That is your old FastPass line. So you have your standby line, and then we used to have a separate FastPass line. That is now the lightning lane. Similar to what you're used to with FastPass, when you purchase Genie Plus, you are choosing an arrival time for an attraction, presumably the ones that already have FastPass lanes, now lightning lanes. However, unlike FastPass Plus, you can only choose one at a time. What we know so far is that when you purchase Genie Plus, you will get access to more than 40 attractions at Walt Disney World and more than 15 at Disneyland Resort. Confirmed Walt Disney World attractions in the Disney Parks blog post are Haunted Mansion, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. There are a couple of different ways to purchase Genie Plus. If you would like to have it applied to the entire length of your ticket, then you can go ahead and do that beforehand. However, I am fairly certain that you would be able to pick and choose single days or just a couple days out of your whole trip. You just can't do that in advance. You would be purchasing that day of. It has been confirmed that you can purchase the Genie Plus a la carte option for a single day, starting around midnight or 12:01 a.m., one of the two, once the day refreshes for that day that you're planning on going to the parks. That being said, personally, and this is an opinion, this is not a confirmed fact, I don't think it will be necessary to stay up till midnight to purchase that Genie Plus add-on. I think you can probably just wake up in the morning and buy it then. And the way things are worded, at least for now, for the launch of the program, and I'm not 100% positive about this, so do keep a lookout for updates, but it sounds like you don't have to purchase Genie Plus for your entire party. So not only do you not have to do the full length of your stay, I don't think you have to do it for your entire party, unlike something like the dining plan, which you do have to do for the entire time of your resort stay for everyone staying in the room. If you're traveling with 6 people and only 2 people are really big into rides, I think you can only purchase Genie Plus for those 2 people, either for their entire length of the trip if they want, or just individual days. At Walt Disney World, for everyone who has purchased Genie Plus, then at 7 a.m. that day that you'd be entering the park and you have Genie Plus for, that's when you can pick your first attraction. At Disneyland, it's a little bit different. Guests will have to have entered the park gates in order to go ahead and make their first attraction selection and get that return time. Now, separate from Genie Plus, you can also purchase access to individual attractions. Here's where the Lightning Lane thing gets a little bit confusing, because you are purchasing access to individual attractions and you'll still be going through the Lightning Lane, just like use of the Lightning Lane for Genie Plus. But purchasing access to an individual attraction is completely separate from Genie Plus. I just want to make sure that's super clear. You can buy a ride on an individual attraction without buying Genie Plus. What we know right now for confirmed rides for this is going to be Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Rise of the Resistance at Walt Disney World, and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure once it opens at Walt Disney World. Over at Disneyland, the paid single attraction option will be available for Web Slingers as well as Radiator Springs Racers. There may be additional rides. I think it's highly likely, actually, that there will be additional rides with this paid individual access, but we don't know that just yet. And at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, the maximum number of paid individual attractions you can do is 2 per guest per day. It's not per park, it's per day. And while, again, you do not need to pay that $15 or $20 per person per day for Genie Plus in order to buy these individual attractions, it is worth noting that these individual paid attractions will not be included with Genie Plus. For a ride like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, for example, that means your only way to get on that ride will be in the standby line, as per usual, or with this paid individual attraction purchase. If you purchase Genie Plus, that will get you nothing for a ride like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Now, Disney did not provide a snappy or catchy name for this feature where you are paying for individual access to a single ride, max 2 per person per day. For the rest of this video, I'm going to be calling them Raja rides. I think it's very confusing to go back and forth with the language of individual attractions or not. The main reason being that when you use Disney Genie Plus, you are selecting individual attractions one at a time to go through the Lightning Lane to access them. But that's clearly very different than purchasing single ride access to an individual attraction like Rise of the Resistance, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, etc. So these fancier rides, these more premium rides, e-ticket you may be used to hearing them called, I'm going to call them Raja rides from now on. Raja rides will be this paid access to individual attractions. Again, completely separate from Genie Plus. To buy Raja rides, if you are a Walt Disney World on-site hotel guest, you can purchase 1 or 2 of your rides starting 7 a.m. day of. If you're an off-site guest at Walt Disney World, you can still buy single Raja rides, but you will have to wait until park open. I'm fairly certain you do not need to be on the premises. I think you just have to wait until the park opens. At Disneyland, for now, there's no differential between on- and off-site guests. All Disneyland guests will be able to book their Raja rides as soon as they enter the park gates. What we know so far about pricing for Raja rides is that it will be dynamic, but we'll come back to this later. And just for further clarification, for Walt Disney World on-site guests, the only real advantage you get in the Genie, Genie Plus, Raja rides, Lightning Lane, etc. whole new system, this thing that is replacing FastPass, is that at 7 a.m. the day of, you can book your Raja rides, whereas non-on-site guests have to wait until the park opens. So you will get that advantage. And maybe that will turn out to be a big deal and be a true advantage. For example, if the total number of Raja rides for each ride is pretty limited, then having that 7 a.m. advantage before all the other off-site guests can book is a big deal. Also, if timing of your ride is important to you, that may be a factor. With first dibs at 7 a.m., presumably you will have an array of return windows to choose from, whereas guests doing it later in the day are probably going to be more limited. But other than this early access to Raja rides, Walt Disney World on-site hotel guests really have no advantage in this system. Your Genie Plus is going to be exactly the same. All Walt Disney World guests with Genie Plus are going to be able to book their first return window for an attraction through Genie Plus at 7 a.m. It doesn't matter if you're staying on-site or not. With Raja rides, like we just said, you can pay to access a ride like Rise of the Resistance or Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. These also have boarding passes. The boarding pass system remains completely unchanged. Most importantly, getting a boarding pass, while challenging and probably annoying, is still free. Let's look at Rise of the Resistance as an example. If you would like to ride this ride, you will need to either obtain a boarding pass for free, or you can purchase access via a Raja ride, price to be determined. There is no standby line, so those really are your only 2 options. Putting this all together, if you are going to be an on-site guest at Walt Disney World, 7 a.m. may be a little bit of a hectic time for you. If you purchased Genie Plus the night before, but after midnight, that should already be loaded. Otherwise, you're going to wake up probably around 6:45 a.m., 6:50 a.m., and buy Genie Plus. If you have purchased Genie Plus, then right at 7 a.m., you will be able to make your first selection for a return window to go through that lightning lane. Then, at 7 a.m. currently is also the time you can try for a Rise of the Resistance boarding pass. And if you want to purchase 1 or 2 Raja rides, that will also open up at 7 a.m. for you, on-site hotel guests at Walt Disney World. If you are an annual pass holder at Walt Disney World or a Magic Key annual pass program holder over at Disneyland, so far we don't really know much about what's happening for you. It has been confirmed that at launch of the Disney Genie service and everything that comes with it this fall, annual pass holders will just have to purchase their a la carte options on the day of. It's not clear if these will be bundled with annual passes at any point, or if you can purchase an add-on. All of that is to come later. Interestingly though, we still don't know what's up with the Walt Disney World annual passes, so maybe we will see it incorporated into the highest tier. Honestly, I really don't know. And the last big substantive update that came with this Disney Genie service announcement is a little bit of an overhaul to the Disability Access Service program. Soon, guests will be able to enroll in the Disability Access Service program through a pre-arrival video chat, which will at first be in English only. You can do this up to 30 days in advance of your arrival. There still will be that in-person option, which is how it has been happening. So before the Disney Genie service launches and this update happens, basically, if you need the Disability Access Service program, you go and talk to guest relations in a park and they'll set it up for you. Another cool part about this pre-enrollment is you will be allowed to select 2 experiences per day subject to availability, again, before you even arrive. And then potentially one of the biggest game changers of this update is that once you are in the parks and you do have your Disability Access Service program activated, instead of having to physically go to a ride to obtain a return time, you'll be able to do that from the app. I think this is a really awesome update and I'm excited to see this implemented. More or less, I think that's basically what we know so far. The press release for this program really didn't contain a lot of details. As per usual with what we've been seeing lately from Disney, there was that line of more to come later. I still have a lot of questions. Here are just a few. What is the ride list for both Genie Plus and Raja rides? I think we can assume that things that had Fast Pass lanes will probably go into Genie Plus, but then some of those will be pulled out of Genie Plus and put into Raja rides. We know a couple for sure, but I definitely think it's going to expand, at least at Walt Disney World. For example, Flight of Passage wasn't announced as for sure going to be included in that list of Raja rides, but I can't imagine that they won't do it. I could also see Space Mountain, maybe Frozen Ever After or Test Track, maybe the Safari, I'm not too sure about that one, or maybe Everest. And then Slinky Dog Dash also seems like a decently safe bet at this point in time. Again, that's all total conjecture. They haven't announced anything. This is just me guessing. Next on my questions is really about capacity. Many of the complaints about FastPass were that, something like 75 or 80% of a ride's daily capacity could be given out during FastPass, so that really slows the standby line down. In order to address this, you need to reduce the amount of FastPass that's available. How many Genie Plus subscriptions will they sell each day? Is it an unlimited amount? From a profit standpoint, obviously you may want to sell an unlimited amount. But from an operations standpoint, well, you also don't want a ton of guests being very upset that they paid $15 per person per day for this Genie Plus, new FastPass system, basically, and then we're still waiting in 40-minute FastPass lines. If they are going to cap it, is it going to be based on a percentage of the number of folks with park reservations that day? Or will the cap instead be a static number? I know that seems like a nitpicky thing to wonder, but if you go, for example, on a low capacity day and it's a static number, so does that mean a vast majority of the capacity is actually going to buy Genie Plus and then the FastPass line will be longer than standby in some cases? I'm very curious as to how they're going to work this all out. I don't think they're ever going to announce exactly what it will be, and we'll just have to wait and see, sort of over the first few months of folks buying this, how it is working out for them. Next, what is pricing for the Raja rides? So we know it's going to be dynamic. I think it's safe to assume that that means it can change day to day. Certainly on busier days it will cost more, on slower days it should cost less. My real question is it going to change hour to hour? Is it going to change within a single day? If I wake up at 7 a.m. and pay $45 for Rise of the Resistance, but then it turns out that they get through all of the boarding groups and all of the Raja ride purchasers by 3 p.m., does that mean that Raja ride price for Rise of the Resistance at 3:05 p.m. drops down to $20? The extent of the dynamic pricing is very interesting to me. They also didn't provide a range of prices. I've heard rumors that it will be anything from $5 up to $50. But basically, overall, we really know nothing about pricing for Raja rides, nothing with certainty, and I think that that is going to be a pretty big deal. Along these thoughts of capacity for these paid experiences and pricing, I'm pretty curious about the refund policy. Rides break down, things happen. If a ride fully breaks down, I expect that Disney will be pretty nice and you will be compensated somehow. But for example, if you buy a Roger ride, a single access to Rise of the Resistance, and the ride goes, but it's in B mode, so you don't get the full pre-show, or, certain animatronics aren't working, etc., do I get any sort of partial refund? If you ask me if I'm paying $40+ to ride a ride, I want the A show. It needs to be 100% perfect. If it's less than that, I'm going to be pretty dang upset. Always be nice to cast members though, never take it out on them, it's not their fault, but that's why I think it's really important that Disney, the corporation, lays out a very clear refund policy. Then I just have the general question of, is Genie, the free version, actually going to help? Is it actually going to optimize your day such that you're waiting in line the least? Or is it just going to serve to push people towards those paid upgrades? Here's a weird correlation I can't get out of my mind. I live in the DC metro area. Traffic around here is very bad. More or less everyone uses Google Maps these days, and I can tell you with certainty that if Google Maps sees an accident ahead on whatever road you're on and it reroutes you a different way, a ton of people take that different way, and that ends up being slower sometimes than had you just stayed on the path that you started on. Back to Disney parks, you see this happening even now with My Disney Experience wait times. I've definitely seen Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid posted at 5 minutes. It takes us 5-6 minutes to saunter over there. By the time we get there, it's now a 35-minute wait. Unless you're able to get to a ride right as the wait time drops, often a lot of people bum rush over there, and then it's a long wait again. The amount of data that the Disney Genie algorithm is going to have to constantly be refreshing and funneling people towards different parts of the parks in order to make everyone have an enjoyable experience is going to be really high. And I don't necessarily doubt that Disney can pull it off, but I definitely want to see it in action before I commit to it. Luckily for me, my trip in September of 2021 surely is before this will debut, which brings us to our last question: when is this actually launching? The announcement said this fall. That's, a 3-month window. Since Remy's Ratatouille Adventure is on that list of Roger rides, I'm guessing that means we won't see it before October 1st. But there's a long time between October 1st and the end of fall, which is basically mid to end December. I have a ton more questions than that, but those are the pretty high-level, most important ones in my opinion. If you're confused about any of these things and you have factual-based questions you think that I can answer that I didn't in this video, definitely let me know in the comments down below. But if you have bigger picture questions regarding to the fact that, well, the Disney Parks blog didn't tell us most of the details about any of this new service, I would love to hear where your brain's at in the comments down below too. I can tell you right now that for a longer trip, I feel very confident that there's no way I would purchase Genie Plus, the $15 per person per day at Walt Disney World, for my entire trip. My upcoming trip, we do have a 10-day ticket. There's just no way that I would buy it for all 10 days. Frankly, I think I would probably only ever buy it for 1 or 2 days, and those would probably incorporate Hollywood Studios and the Magic Kingdom. I really don't think you're going to need Genie Plus for Epcot, but I could be wrong. Over at Disneyland, though, even when it was Max Pass, I was very sure I was going to buy it no matter what whenever I make it out to Disneyland, since I go so infrequently. And now that Genie Plus in Disneyland includes PhotoPass, I'm totally sold. We're definitely buying this whenever we make it out there. I know this is another added upcharge and people are upset about that. That's totally fair, and you do you. What I would say is you don't have to purchase it. And certainly in the coming months, we'll be able to see the utility of it through other people's experiences. So I'm happy to let other people be the guinea pig, and then I will make my decision later on. I hope this has helped clarify some aspects of the new Disney Genie service, Genie Plus, Lightning Lanes, individual paid attractions, which I'm calling Roger Rides, Disability Access Service Program updates, and boarding passes. It's quite a big news announcement, and if we're being honest, I really don't think Disney did the best job rolling it out. I'm really excited to see what the future of all this holds. I hope you are too. May the rest of your day be kind, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.